Here we are again at Learn Python 3 the Hard Way, exercise 29. Now this one is another example of combination. So programming is all about combination. The fundamental thing of programming is you take pieces that sort of work on their own doing a certain thing, and you are able to combine them. You combine other people's code with your code. You combine Boolean with this. You combine objects. You combine things. And when you can't combine things, it seems weird. So in this case, we're learning about if statements. Now you had a brief little touch on that in exercise 23 when you learned about recursion, where main called main. And actually, let me just pull that file up so we can talk about that real quick. So you had a small example, if hopefully that file can come up, or maybe not. No, there we go. Cool. So you had a small example of if in this file. If you remember exercise 23, we had our main, and then if there was a line, we called main again. Okay. In this exercise, exercise 29, we're just doing the very basic baby version of if, just if. It gets a little more complicated after if, but all we're doing is just if. Now, how exercise 29 or how an if statement works is you take your exercise 27 and exercise 28 Boolean logic. So you should be pretty solid on Boolean logic now. We have the less thans, the greater thans, equals, and or. And how an if statement works is it evaluates the Boolean statements, and if the result is true. So remember when we did the replacing, right? So let me show you that super quick. Remember when we went through and we processed, oh, I seem to have deleted. Let me just start it up. Remember when we did true and true, or false and true, right? And then we went in and replaced false and true is going to be false. And we did true and true is going to be true, and true or false is going to be true. So we did that replacing, right? When you had the very complicated statement that you did before, we did this, and you broke that down. Okay, Python's going to do that same thing. It's going to process your Booleans and come up and boil it down to just one true right here. And then, or false. You could also have false. And then if that true is false, if it's true, it will run and go into this branch. Now you learned branches from functions. You made a function and you defined it and you do an indent, and now you've got a new branch, okay? So an if statement is using the colon and an indent to start another branch. Remember, branches are changes in execution. It can go left or it can go right. In this case, it goes left or it goes right. Okay, so your goal in this exercise is to run it and then fiddle with these numbers to get these if statements to run or not run. So you can see I have a whole bunch of them, and you should go in and play with all of them, okay? So let's just run this first one time. Okay, too many cats, the world is doomed. Now, let's do this thing and put this one over here. And let's drop this font down so we can look at it. All right, so let's run it one more time. Okay, so now we can come in, we can see too many cats, the world is doomed. Too many cats, the world is doomed. Now, pop back up to here. What is cats? Cat is 30. And what is people? 20. So cats is greater than people. That's true. It runs this line. Okay. The world is dry. That's the next one that gets done. So this one. So that means it skipped these ones. So why is that? Cats is 30 and people is 20. So 30 here. People is 20. So that means it's false. So it skipped it. And then same for dogs. Dogs is 15 and people is 20. So dogs or let's see, the world is drooled on. Dogs is greater. No, it's not. Dogs is less than. And the world is dry. So that's the one we just did. Okay, now your goal in this exercise is to take that, okay, and change it. So how would we make the world is drooled on happen, but not have our results for cats change? Well, let's try this. So I want this one to go, but not that one. So I'm going to say the world is drooled on. People have to be less than dogs. Okay. But if I make people too small, will that change this? No, it should still do the same result. So let's change people to 10. Let's do that. Okay. And then what do we get? Do we get too many cats, the world is doomed, and the world is drooled on? So I did it. So that's what you're supposed to do. And also do all your debug printing and everything else. Okay, now let's look at some breakage. How can we break this script? All right. You've got some new stuff, and something you should be figuring out is when you run into a new thing, there's new ways to break it. It's interesting. This is probably could be like a whole theory. When there's something new, you can break it. Now, I'm not going to change the file at all. How can I break it? So let's do this. Let's just get rid of this character and see what that does. Okay, now we get invalid syntax. That's kind of expected. If you've been breaking all along, you know deleting a character most likely is going to give you invalid syntax. But how about we get rid of the colon? Let's see what that one does. Now, I'm thinking it's going to say bad indent, but maybe it'll say syntax error because the if requires the colon. So let's see. Yep, invalid syntax because the if requires the colon. Okay, let's try another one. How's another way we can break it? Let's get rid of the if. Just do that. Invalid syntax again. You need the if. Let's get rid of the colon. Let's see what we can do there. Unexpected indent. That's another way we break it. Okay, let's see. What are some other things we can do? Oh, and this is a new one, plus equals. That basically just takes, it's a rewrite of this. That's all that is. It's just an easier way to do that. Okay, I think that's pretty much all the ways I can think of breaking it, plus the usual, people and whatnot like that. Now, the final thing is debugging practice. So the question to ask is, why? Right? Why is this if statement going off? So you should do print debugging that will do something like this. Don't repeat it. Just say, I can do first if. That can be one. And I can do people, cats, just like that. Okay. First if, people, cats, 20. See? Now you can see why it's that. Remember, your brain isn't as highly trained. Even my brain is not that highly trained. Like I told you from exercise 27, I have a tendency to just kind of gloss over things. So in this case, it's better to print out what that variable is to see why you are running that. If you run into anything missing, any lines not getting run, anything like that, print out the variables involved in the if statements to see why they're running or not. Printing out before and after can also be another useful thing. Okay, so that's the end of this exercise. After this, you are going to learn more about if statements and then eventually use them to make a game.